Welcome to the Black Anarchist Podcast, a channel where critical thinkers come to learn and grow. Through pedagogical discussions, we challenge the status quo, conventional narratives, and present raw truth. I'm JC, author of the Black State Project, The Path to Sovereignty, Reparations, and Rebuilding Black Wall Street. So today, I'm going to share my article that I just posted on Substack. I've only been on Substack for less than a week, and I've already posted 3. So here's what I was going to do this as a live stream, but for me to just ad-lib it, I thought wasn't going to do it justice. I had to actually sit down and think about what my thoughts were going to be, and so I guess I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone because I'm promoting my Substack channel and I'm going to get something off my chest that I've been wanting to say for a while. The article is called "The Coward Solution: Most Sadistic Statists Are America's Problem." Maybe I could have came up with a better title. Anyway, most Americans are scared little creatures who have elevated government to the status of an all-powerful deity that cannot be questioned, challenged, or defied. They cower before its authority, not out of respect, but out of pure terror, terror of consequences, terror of responsibility, and most of all, terror of having to govern themselves. The government as God. Watch how Americans speak about government. Listen to the reverence in their voices, the hushed tones when discussing what Washington thinks or what the authorities say. They don't see the government as their servant. They see it as their master, their protector, their divine authority that knows better than they do. This isn't patriotism. Patriotism would mean loyalty to their fellow Americans, but these creatures are disloyal. They will turn on their neighbors, their friends, their own family members if government tells them to. Their loyalty isn't to the country or the people, it's to the institution that rules over them. This isn't civic duty, it's treason. They will deny that government is their God, but look at the characteristics that they attribute to it. Omniscience. Government knows what's best for everyone. It has access to information and wisdom that ordinary people cannot comprehend. They have intelligence we don't have. There are things we don't understand. Trust the experts. Omnipotence. Governments can solve problems if given power and resources, poverty, crime, disease, inequality. Just give government more authority and it will fix everything. It is the source of all solutions. Omnipresence. Government should be involved in every aspect of life: education, healthcare, business, personal relationships, what you eat, what you drive, where you live. There is no spare too private for government intervention. Infallibility. When the government fails, it's not the government's fault. It's because people didn't follow the rules correctly, or because government didn't have enough power, or because of external forces. Government itself is never wrong. Only its implementation was flawed. Divine right. Government has the moral authority to command obedience. Its laws are not just suggestions, they are commandments. To disobey government is not just illegal, it's immoral. It's the law, is the end of all moral reasoning. They believe government should have the authority to control our bodies, whether we can have abortions, whether we have the right to die, what medical treatments we must accept. The fact that they think this is legitimate authority proves that they see the government as God. Only a deity would have dominion over life and death, over the most intimate aspects of human existence, yet they grant this divine power to politicians and bureaucrats without question. Salvation. Government is the path to a better world. Vote for the right politicians, pass the right laws, create the right programs, and paradise will follow. Government is humanity's savior. The irrationality of this worship becomes clear when you consider that these same people would not trust their neighbor to control them. They wouldn't trust any random stranger to make decisions about their lives. But suddenly, when someone gets an official government title, they become all-knowing beings who deserve total submission. They don't see government as a group of human beings controlling their lives. They see it as a nebulous, benevolent entity that serves the common good. The same person they wouldn't trust to babysit their children, becomes worthy of absolute obedience the moment they put on a government badge or get elected to office. They have a they have created a secular religion where government is God, politicians are priests, and citizens are nothing more than obedient children who must never question daddy's decision. The very idea of challenging this authority sends them into panic. You can't fight the legal system, they whisper, as if the courts were Mount Olympus and they were mere mortals who dare not anger the gods. The problem is their mentality. The truth is, no one is forcing them to be oppressed. They want to be oppressed. This isn't about external coercion, this is about internal submission. They have chosen their status. What they really fear isn't government oppression, it's that without government, they wouldn't get to oppress other people. They are sadistic statists who use their state as their tool of oppression. Listen to what they're really thinking. Without government, I wouldn't have a say in how my neighbors raise their children. Without government, I wouldn't be able to exploit workers through state enforced property rights that let me live without working. Without government, I wouldn't have occupational licenses that eliminate my competition. I'd actually have to compete in a free market based on merit. Without government, I couldn't force people to fund my business through subsidies. Without government, I couldn't use zoning laws to keep undesirable people out of my neighborhood. Without government, I couldn't use regulations to destroy small businesses that compete with my corporate employers. Without government, I couldn't force my moral views on everyone else through legislation. Without government, I couldn't control how LGBT people live their lives and force them to conform to my moral standards. Without government, I couldn't force people to get medical treatments they don't want. They don't want freedom, they want the power to control others. Government is their tool of oppression, and they're terrified of losing it. They know that in a truly free society, they have to succeed on their own merits, treat people with respect, and mind their own business. And that's what terrifies them. What makes this even more sinister is that government holds a monopoly on the use of physical force. Every government action is ultimately backed by violence. Taxation is theft enforced at gunpoint. Regulations are commands backed by imprisonment. Mandates are orders enforced through physical coercion. When these people demand government action, they are demanding violence against their fellow citizens. This means all of these people are fundamentally violent themselves. They may never personally assault someone, but they eagerly vote for others to commit violence on their behalf. They are too cowardly to directly force their neighbors to comply with their wishes, so they use the state as their proxy. They hide behind the false legitimacy of government to unleash force against anyone who refuses to submit to their will. They remain subjects, willingly governed by those above them in the hierarchy, but they use the government to do their dirty work against those below them. They accept their own oppression as the price for getting to oppress others. This is the perfect arrangement for cowards who want to be sadistic, but lack the courage to be directly violent themselves. They don't want to carry out the violence themselves. Statism is how civilized people commit their violence. They turn violence into a service industry where they're the customers and government is the contractor. They place their orders through voting and legislation. Politicians act as contractors organizing the operation. Then the government mercenaries handle the actual dirty work. They get to feel morally superior while unleashing brutality on others, all while maintaining the pretense that they're peaceful, law-abiding citizens who would never hurt anyone. Every law they support, every regulation they champion, every government program they advocate for is a demand for violence against those who would choose differently. They are not peaceful people seeking reasonable solutions. They are violent authoritarians who have outsourced their brutality to the state. They justify this violence through fear. If we don't use the government to impose our will first, someone else will use it to impose their will on us. They cannot see that the system of state-imposed force itself is the problem. Instead of eliminating the tool of oppression, they fight endlessly over who gets to wield it. They would rather participate in a system of mutual violence than live in a world where no one has the power to force others to comply. But their fears runs deeper than this. They are terrified of how their lives might be impacted if they couldn't use government as a tool of oppression to control others. Their fear isn't about being oppressed, it's about losing their ability to be sadistic. They're afraid of a world where they have to persuade instead of coerce, where they have to earn respect instead of demanding submission, where they'd have to mind their own business instead of controlling everyone else's. But here's the most revealing part of their mentality. When they see someone else getting destroyed by the system, they immediately assume the victim deserved it. They must have done something wrong. They should have followed the rules. If they were innocent, this would not have happened. This isn't just cowardice, it's psychological gaslighting. If victims deserve their fate, then it's creatures, if victims deserve their fate, then these creatures can believe they're safe as long as they stay compliant. It's easier to blame the victim than to confront the reality that government destroys innocent people regularly. But when it's their turn, when a system finally comes for them, suddenly they expect sympathy. They expect others to care, to fight, to risk everything they refuse to risk for anyone else. By then, it's too late. The very mentality that kept them safe has isolated them completely. Who will fight for someone who never fought for anyone else? The illusion of safety. These creatures believe that if they just follow the orders, pay their taxes, and keep their heads down, government will protect them and leave them alone. They bought into the greatest lie ever sold, that government exists to serve them. Government exists to perpetuate itself. It grows, it consumes, it demands more control, more compliance, more submission. The scared little creatures feed this beast willingly, believing that their sacrifice will buy them peace. But there is no peace for slaves, only temporal absence of the whip. They don't want to govern themselves. Here's the uncomfortable truth: most Americans don't actually want freedom. Real freedom requires responsibility, decision making, risk, and the possibility of failure. It's easier to let someone else make the hard choices and then complain about the results. They want incremental change but reject any sweeping transformation. They'll support tweaks to the system, but a different candidate, a new policy, minor reforms, but they recoil in horror from anything that would actually dismantle the system and liberate them. Why? Because dismantling the system means they have to govern themselves. Self-governance is terrifying to people who have been trained to be dependent. They would rather have government tell them what to eat, where to send their children to school, how to run their businesses, and what they can say in public than take responsibility for their own lives. They panic at the thought of having to make real decisions or face consequences without government protection. The idea of living without their safety nets of rules, regulations, and oversights sends them into terror. Who will tell them what to do? Who will make the hard choices? Who will take the blame when things go wrong? They mistake their cowardice for wisdom. They call their submission pragmatic. They frame their fear as picking your battles. They pretend that they are adult. They pretend that they are the adults in a room, and anyone who wants revolutionary change shouldn't be taken seriously. They support anything that maintains their comfortable cage while giving the illusion of progress. But underneath all these rationalizations is a simple truth. They are too scared to be free, and they resent anyone who offers them real liberation. The illusion of choice. These creatures mistake choosing between pre-approved options for actual freedom. They think voting between two government-endorsed candidates mean they have control. They believe selecting from different brands of the same corporate products means they have a choice. They confuse the freedom to pick their favorite flavor of oppression with actual liberty. They don't see the government as the problem. In their minds, the problem is just individual government actors. They think if people would just put their preferred dictators in power, everything will be fine. The system itself is perfect. It's just run by the wrong people. Many of these people are complaining about authoritarianism under Donald Trump but they supported the exact same authoritarianism when they were getting what they wanted. They had no problem with government force when it was being used against their enemies. They only discovered their principles when the power was wielded against them. This is why they focus all their energy on elections, on getting their team into office. They would never question whether the office should exist at all, whether the power structure itself is corrupt, whether the entire system needs to be dismantled. They just want their turn to wield the whip. The system gives them just enough meaningless choices to maintain the illusion that they're free while ensuring all important decisions are made for them. They can choose what to watch on their screens, what to buy at the store, which politician to vote for, but they cannot choose to be free from the system itself. These scared little creatures never look up to see who is oppressing them. Instead, they look down to see who they can oppress. They're comfortable being crushed from above as long as they are not at the very bottom of the hierarchy. And no one is at the very bottom because even the lowest person can have children and oppress those children. This is how they maintain the illusion of power, even though they are truly powerless. The parent who gets humiliated by their boss goes home and humiliates their child. The manager who gets screamed at by corporate executives screams at their employees. Everyone punches down, never up. They don't even think it's worth to fight for their children. They will create children and leave them to fend for themselves in the same corrupt system. They are throwing their children into the lions. It should be lion's den. Sorry, into the lion's den, feeding the next generation to the very beasts they refuse to fight. What kind of parent brings children into a world they know is broken and then does nothing to fix it? What kind of cowardness, what kind of coward creates life only to abandon it at the same, what kind of coward creates life only to abandon it to the same oppression they accepted for themselves? They are cowards. The thought of fighting against the system never occurs to them. Even the so-called activists among them aren't fighting for real liberation. They're fighting for better positions within the same oppressive system. They want reform, not revolution. They want their turn to be the oppressor, not the elimination of the oppression. They go around punching down instead of punching up because punching up is dangerous. Punching down is safe. It makes them feel powerful without requiring any real courage or risking any real consequences. The American people have brought this on themselves. This is exactly what they want. A system where everyone gets to feel superior to someone else, where everyone gets their little taste of power, where no one has to take the terrifying risk of actually being free. These creatures demand cannibalistic participation in their comfortable oppression. They want you to care about whatever they think is important, vote for their candidates, support their causes, fight their battles, but they don't care about what you want. They want you to sacrifice yourself so they can be happy. When you try to address real systemic problems, they redirect you to their pet issues. When you point out judicial corruption, they want you to protest the police instead. When you want to fight for sovereignty, they demand that you focus on cash reparations. Always their priorities, never yours. They want your energy, your time, your sacrifice, all in service of maintaining the very system that oppresses you both. But while you're fighting for liberation, they're fighting for better accommodation in their prison. They don't want freedom, they want comfort, and they expect you to help them achieve it. They prefer endless complaining about problems to actually solving them, because solving them would end their comfortable victimhood. Complaining is complaining is safe. Complaining doesn't require risk or sacrifice. Complaining lets them feel morally superior while playing it safe. They've turned victimhood into an identity. Their oppression gives them something to bond over, something to talk about, something to make them feel special. If the problems were actually solved, what would they have left? They would have to find new meaning, new purpose, new ways to connect with others. So they sabotage any efforts for real change and attack anyone who prefers actual paths to liberation, calling them extremists or unrealistic. They prefer their familiar problems to unfamiliar freedom. Watch how they treat anyone who actually resists the system. They don't just ignore them, they actively work to destroy them. They ostracize genuine rebels, mock them, have them censored, and do everything in their power to make resistance as dangerous and isolating as possible. They become enforcers of the very system that oppresses them. They police each other, ensuring no one steps out of line. They are more vicious towards those who fight for freedom than they are towards those who steal their freedom. Why? Because rebels remind them of what they could be if they had courage, and that reminder is unbearable. The system survives by consuming the energy, hope, and sacrifice of those foolish enough to believe change is possible, while the scared creatures redirect that energy away from anything that might actually threaten their comfortable position as slaves. We all have to be oppressed because they want to be oppressed. Statism offers nothing for those of us who care about freedom because we don't enjoy controlling other people. Controlling others does nothing for us. We don't get sadistic pleasure out of oppressing people and making other people miserable. We just want to be left alone. But leave me alone is not an option they're willing to give anyone. They can't tolerate the existence of people who reject their system, who refuse to participate in their violence, who want to live freely without harming others. Our very existence threatens their worldview because we prove that oppression isn't necessary. When we talk about how oppressed we feel, they have no idea what we're talking about. They're having too much fun oppressing everybody else to think about their own oppression. Their defense is always, if you don't like it, then you can just move. However, they can't tell you where you can move to be free from systemic oppression. There is no place on earth that isn't controlled by some government. It's also completely impractical for people to just pick up and move. People cannot afford to just relocate. People do not have the ability to earn a livelihood in a place where they don't know anyone. Ironically, the same people who would tell you to just move don't even support open borders. Even though these people would tell you to move, none of them support the right to medical assistance in dying because they don't want us to have the ability to opt out. Everybody talks about how the government is a problem, but nobody wants to look in the mirror to see that they are the government. This is their system. We live in a democracy. The government does not function the way it does simply because people aren't fighting against it. The government functions this way because this is exactly what the American people want. They may not support the specific leaders who are in power at any given time, but they support the system itself. The more oppressed people are, the more they punch down. They do this because they don't want to feel powerless. They would rather align with those who are powerful so they can feel powerful themselves. They know they have no power to fight against the system, but they do feel they have power to oppress someone below them. I think I'm almost finished, y'all. The problem is that because they want to be oppressed and won't do anything against it, we all have to be oppressed. We all have to suffer because of their cowardice. The government these creatures worship doesn't respect them, it despises them. It sees their fear and exploits it. It recognizes their own weakness and uses it. It knows they will never fight back, so it never has to restrain itself. You want to know why government grows more powerful and more corrupt every year? Because it's surrounded by scared little creatures who enable its worst impulses and punishes anyone brave enough to challenge its authority. Their cowardice doesn't just affect them, it traps everyone else in the same system. Every scared creature who chooses submission makes resistance more dangerous for those few who still have courage. They are not innocent bystanders in their own oppression. They are the architects of everyone's oppression. They deserve the government they get. The tragedy is that the rest of us have to live under it too. Most Americans are not sovereigns, they are subjects. They are not free people. They are scared little creatures who have voluntarily surrendered their power to an entity they fear too much to challenge and worship, too much to resist. Until they find the courage to govern themselves, they will continue to be governed by others. Until they stop fearing their government, they will never be free from it. But courage cannot be taught to those who prefer enslavement. And freedom cannot be given to those too scared to take it. Getting your hopes up is the worst thing you can do. It will only make you depressed and disappointed. They are never going to do anything. The scared little creatures will remain scared little creatures. The system isn't the problem, they are the problem. Right. Well, yeah, that's exactly right. They want to use the government as an instrument of oppression. As long as the government is doing their bidding, then they're okay with it. But when the government eventually turns against them, then all of a sudden they expect somebody to care. So um, I didn't want to just get on here and just do a random rant. I wanted to actually have my thoughts organized, so I decided to write this article on Substack. And um, you guys can check out my channel on Substack. And I'm probably going to be posting more on Substack than I will be on here. But thank you for listening to the Black Anarchist Podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. The struggle is real, and the fight for liberation is far from over. Get sovereign or die trying.